Thank you again for being here. And without further ado, I'd like to briefly introduce today's speaker. Dr. Santitarn Sathirathai is an advisor on the future economy at the Thailand Development Research Institute, where he focuses on the economic transformation, innovation, and long-term policy strategy. He previously served as a group chief economist at C Group and head of emerging Asia economics at Credit Suisse. With the deep expertise in the macroeconomic policy and digital economy trends, Santitarn has advised both the private and public sector across Asia. He holds a PhD in economics from Harvard University, and he also frequently speaks on the intersection of technology, development, and economic resilience. And without further ado, thank you so much, and over to you, Santitarn.
Right. Thank you so much, Colin, for that kind introduction. Well, it's great pleasure and very honored to be here back at Kennedy School. So last time I was here was 15 years ago. So I was a student here. I was MPID. I don't want to say the year, but yeah, who's the MPID? All right, fantastic. Okay. But yeah, all one HTS community though, Harvard community. MPID 07. And also the PhD public policy 2010. So, and you know, when I was here, many of you will be surprised to hear there was no Wexner building, there was no Ofer building. So it's all different. This is all built later. And to come back here, it's definitely a lot more beautiful than before, a lot more grand, also a lot more complicated to navigate around. It was quite tough back then, but now it's even more complicated. And it's probably a perfect setting because the world has changed a lot too since then. And the world has become more complicated too for different reasons. But so I'm very glad to kind of help come here and share my views on Southeast Asia through the work and through the lens that I've been working through various positions in my life. I'm also glad that we have in our audience today, Pak Dede, who's from Indonesia, and I seek his advice and insights a lot in the past, where he was the Minister of Finance in Indonesia. So yeah, today, let's kick it off. I would like to start though, by just introducing myself a little bit, just to talk about my career journey, because even though my passion is in public policy and development, I took quite an unusual route to come back to policy world. I spent most of my life in private sector, actually. Right after graduating in 2010, and then, to be honest, I was very embarrassed to tell my advisors then that actually the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hop and I'm going to join a bank. So I joined Credit Suisse as Asia economist, looking at 10 economies, including Southeast Asia. And then I made a career turn around 2018 when I joined a company, a tech company called C Group, as a newly created position, group chief economist and senior managing director there. And it's a company that operates e-commerce, fintech, virtual banks, and digital entertainment across Southeast Asia and beyond. It is now one of the largest companies in Southeast Asia. And then I kind of stopped with all the corporate job. This is about 5 years ago. Oh, no, actually, no, less than that. 2 years ago, feels like 5 years. 2 years ago, I decided, so most of the time I was based in Singapore. And then I decided I want to go back to Thailand and do more policy work. So I'm trained at Kennedy School after all, want to do public policy at some point. So I came back to Thailand, and then I joined a couple of positions, one of which is the Monetary Policy Committee of Thailand. It is basically similar to the FOMC here. So we have 7 members that vote on when interest rate will go up or go down, and what direction of policy on exchange rate is going to be. So I'm one of the 7. I also do the policy think tank work and sit on an investment committee government pension fund of $40 billion US dollar funds that invest globally in public and private market. And I also sit on advisor to the Parliamentary Commission on AI in Thailand. So I do a lot of kind of writing laws on digital and AI. So you can see that it's very convoluted path as well, kind of like, the way you navigate the buildings here. But I wanted to inform you this way because it affects the lens through which I look at Southeast Asia, which may not be all correct, maybe by have some biases as well. And I want to tell you about 3 parts. The first part is right after graduating from the HKS 2010. Why did I choose to go to Singapore and join international banks? I had this thesis. I believe in a thesis that Asia was on the rise. That was 2010, right after the global financial crisis. I believe that Asia is going to become a more important player in the world. You're going to have China, you're going to have India, and you have Southeast Asia as emerging region. And I believe that by playing something in a kind of regional role, either in Hong Kong and Southeast Asia, I can be part of the growth story. I can really understand how the economy evolves. And that's why I chose to come back to Asia and why I chose not to go back to Thailand, because I want to do something regional so I can see the pulse of Asia. So I chose Singapore, and I believe that Southeast Asia is going to be the key pillar of growth in Asia. And if you look at Southeast Asia, it has a lot going for it. It's a market filled with potential. Population is actually younger than China and other Asian countries. So even by the time 2038, about half of the people will be less than 30. So very youthful population, good demographic dividends. It is the fourth largest economic region in the world, about 4.5 trillion economy, growing around 5% a year. So all the numbers look fantastic, except, well, we call it as one region, Southeast Asia, but really there's 10 countries in there, and they're all different. Just because you succeed in Indonesia doesn't mean you're going to succeed in Singapore. You succeed in Singapore doesn't mean you're going to succeed in Thailand. So you have to understand each individual market. So it's not easy to crack into these markets. Plus, honestly, during 2010, up until the period of COVID, the Asia story was there. So that part I was right. But I was wrong about the timing, because all about Asia story then was mostly about China. So if this were one big movie, it is a hit movie, but Asia, the main character was China, and then followed by India. And Southeast Asia was pretty much at the time more like supporting cast. So, and you can see why here. If you look at the trajectory of the GDP of China, it's far surpassed most countries. Maybe Vietnam is another story that's quite exciting, but if you look at Southeast Asia as a whole, it's nowhere near compared to China. You look at growth period around 2013, 2023, China is growing. This is already slowed down 6% a year, whereas the ASEAN six largest countries is roughly around 4%. So you can see why China was getting all the attention at the time. And that was also when China also established itself as a factory of the world, where it became the supreme manufacturing hub. About 30%, I think, or more than 30% of manufacturing value added is done in China. So it's getting all the attention. So Southeast Asia in some ways at the time was a supporting cast that you feel like it's a market of tomorrow, but everyone is asking, all the investors meeting me then was asking, when's tomorrow going to come? Because keep tomorrow and then it's tomorrow and it's tomorrow. But then things change. And this is part two. Things change in 2017 when the US changed its international trade policy, something that we are so familiar with today. Trade war, trade tensions, geopolitical shifts. All of that actually, of course, sent globalization to chaos. But within that, there's also benefit that comes to Southeast Asia, because for the first time, people start to look beyond China and look to other parts of Asia. And Southeast Asia begin to benefit from that trend. The key word then was the theme called China plus one. And even though it says plus one, in real life, it's mean trillions of dollars is being shifted. Multinational companies, Chinese companies, are looking to expand and invest, shift the FDI reconfiguration, shift the FDI to Southeast Asia. It's called China plus one because it's not that they're leaving China. They still have production facilities and assets in China, but those are for Chinese markets. But for the global markets, instead of producing out of China, they're moving to Vietnam, they're moving to Malaysia, they're moving to Thailand, they're moving to Indonesia, and whatnot. And that's why you can see in this chart, this is FDI flows. That year 2023 was a very important year. It's the year where global FDI actually contracted, but global FDI in the C6 economies, the largest ASEAN economies, expanded. So actually, ASEAN was gaining market share, even though the world was contracting. And it's also the first time that China actually got more net FDI than China. So that was a turning point. It started to become very clear that now Southeast Asia is back at the forefront. It is in the limelight now. It is in the spotlight, having played a supporting cast for a long time. So, and once you look closer, what's driving these? Well, those the superstar of the Southeast Asian and being the FDI magnets are three countries: Singapore, Indonesia, and Vietnam. These are the trios that are getting the most FDI, but others are also doing quite well. Each country has its own specialty, and most of them are related to the so-called new economies: green economy, digital economy. So you can see EV manufacturing go to Thailand, EV battery manufacturing in Indonesia, which have a lot of green metals like nickel, semiconductors going to Penang in Malaysia and Singapore, data center going to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. So all of these are pretty much a new economy theme. And as a result of increase in FDI into Southeast Asia, now you start to see the reversal trend in terms of market share of export as well. Because of all these FDIs, the ASEAN region is becoming more competitive and gaining market share, whereas China, the long-term champion at the time, started to see a decline in the export and manufacturing, to be exact, market share. So you can see the market share of China export in the world has gradually come down, whereas it has increased in the case of ASEAN and India. So this reflects the shift in production location from China to this region. But not all is good. When there's light, there's always shadow. And when there's opportunity, there's always risks and challenges as well. And sometimes the numbers don't tell you the whole story. So even though there are this increase in FDI market share and increase in export market share in Southeast Asia, there are at least two big challenges that come with this increased attention to Southeast Asia as well. One is that actually part of the export story or the shift in supply chain is about China shifting to Asia, to Southeast Asia, in order to export to the US and Europe market. So in the past, from China, you can export directly to US or European market, to Western markets. But what has happened is some of this production is shifted. So now instead of exporting directly, let's say, take example, you export to Vietnam first, and there might be some processing, some value added is done domestically in Vietnam, and then that export will ultimately go to the US. So in some ways, China is exporting to the US still, but they're doing it through Southeast Asia. And the value added that's happening in Southeast Asia varies greatly depending on the products. Certain products, yes, there are domestic activities, there are factories, there are people working, there's knowledge transfer and know-how happening. In some products, for example, like solar panels and some machinery, the value added is very small. It's pretty much just a pass-through. So what this chart shows is a case study showing that. You will see that the Vietnam export to the US go up hand in hand as Vietnam import from China. So what's coming here is going out there. So it's very high correlation in that. And that happens at the same time when US stop importing directly from China. So it's just a refiguration of the export routes. The problem with this, and this is happening not just in Vietnam, by the way, it's all pretty much ASEAN economies. What problem this creates is that when you export a lot to the US, you're gaining trade surplus against the US, which means that will put you on the tariff radar of the US. But you're not actually getting a lot of benefit from that exports because a lot of that came from the import from China. The value added is not that big. So you're kind of stuck between two worlds. You're on the tariff radar, seeming like the one causing the deficit in the US. Yet, you're not actually getting much benefit from that. So this is problem number one of this kind of shift in trade patterns. Problem number two is that increase in trade tensions today also resulted in some of the countries starting to divert their export away from the US to other markets, which is to remain more open. So this is examples of from China exports and Thailand as a market. So this is from the perspective of Thailand. What we have seen is that because China find it harder to kind of crack into the US market with all the trade wars, so it started to diversify. China has a lot of overcapacity issues, so it started to export a lot of the products which have a lot of oversupply to other markets, including Thailand. So products such as electrical appliances, furniture, iron fabricated metals, vehicles, petrochemicals, textile and garments, now flooding into the Thai market. And it has a very significant impact. This is the market share. So to show you that this is pre-COVID, and this is the latest data, you can see that the electrical appliances, for example, this line has gone, the market share of China's product in the domestic sale has gone from below 10% to around 40%. That's the market share now. For products like furniture, the market share is 80%. So that means the locals stop buying local products. If you're local SMEs, you're local producers, you struggle to fight with the products which are importing from China. And that's got wiped out. And this also have impact on inflation, downward impact on inflation, because of the struggle to raise price and margins is actually contributed to kind of weaker inflation in a country as well. So the impact is pretty significant. So this is another issue. And again, this is a case study of Thailand, but it's happening not just in Thailand, happening across a few markets as well. So these are the two things that's happening as a result of being now in a spotlight. You're getting more capital, you're getting more goods, everyone is interested in you. But it comes with these risks, these challenges that you have to manage. And we'll come back to that, about how to do that. But there's another event that's happening in that past 10 years, since 2018. And that's the digital leapfrogging of this region. And this leapfrogging has dual meaning. One is, of course, the region making the leapfrog. But second is also parallel to that, is also my own life. This is also when I make the leap across from the finance to tech. So this one, I got lucky. I just jumped in right at a perfect timing when the digital economy was about to take off in Southeast Asia and joining Company C. So what I've seen through that process was basically a combination of mobile first revolution plus COVID really turbocharged the digital economy adoption. You've seen a rapid increase in internet users, now reaching 73 to 83% of the population in Southeast Asia, which is over 600 million people. That resulted in more digital consumers spending online, buying things on e-commerce, ordering food, just like what you see here. And that's been driving the the digital economy in the region, which grew 3x within 5 years. Has expanded 3x. Very rapid pace and continue to have healthy growth. It's led by sectors like e-commerce, like food and transport, and travel, which is no surprise because if you look at the biggest companies, the winners that come from the region are precisely those coming from these sectors, right? Whether it's the C, whether it's Grab, whether it's Goto. And by the way, you may also already know that Grab and Goto are Harvard grad as well on HBS side. And with that growth in digital economy, you have increase in digital payments adoption. So payments, as you started buying things online, it's much more convenient to actually do the payments online as well, to use QR code, to use money transfer instead of just keep using cash. So over time, the digital payments adoption has increased a lot. And that's important because this is a region whereby, at least in the past, I would say 70% of people are either unbanked or underbanked. Some of them don't have bank accounts. Some of them don't even have ID. but they have wallet. So the wallet is a way that help them connect to the formal economy. It's the first step. They have a digital footprints. Now they can enter the formal economy. Now they can open bank accounts. Now they can think about getting their IDs. So previously excluded is now part of the digital economy, and digital payments can connect them and open door for other digital services. Imagine you are a sellers of products on e-commerce platform. Now you have a digital data that you actually make a lot of money from platform, and you've been paying your bills on time, utility bills. These can be used in alternatives credit scoring, so you can get loans. So now you can buy insurance. So this is a very important steps towards kind of getting them to access many other services. And when you talk about digital economy, a lot of people focus on how many unicorns do you have, how successful are your startups and all of that. That's part of the story. In policy and developments, probably the more important part is this part, is whether this expansion digital economy has helped improve inclusion. And there's evidence that showing that it has actually contributed to that, because you see that a lot of the increase in the digital and access to digital services happen more in a rural than in urban areas. So the marginal increase of access to internet is stronger in the rural areas in most of these countries. And to illustrate that, how that translates into kind of actual digital activities for consumers and sellers. As you can see this map. This map is a map of Thailand. Again, similar things happening in other countries. I'm just Thailand because I have easier data here. You can see that over time, the buyers initially and sellers pretty much concentrated in Bangkok, which is the capital city. But over time, it has spread. This orange dot become like nationwide. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the mountains in the north, in islands in the south. Now you have access to the digital services. It's true for buyers. They're very clear. You can buy it now. It doesn't matter where you are. But it also becoming true for the entrepreneurs, the sellers as well. So sellers, if you're small scale sellers, you're no longer constrained by where you are. You can sell to nationwide and now beyond the borders too. You can become exporters, even though you're SMEs. It's also true that you don't have to be full-time entrepreneurs. You can be students, you can be homemakers, you can sell this on products. And by the way, these charts, this is 2019. This is before COVID. It's much, much stronger now. I can only show the old data because at the time company didn't allow me to use more updated data. But you can see why that this has really important impact. And now we reach the next steps. The digital foundation provide a very strong foundation for leaping into the AI era, because you're already digital users. And now all of a sudden, the AI is making it even easier in some ways to use these digital services, because generative AI has made machine language human and human expression machine readable. So it's easier to communicate than ever before. In the past, you may need to know English. Now you can translate. It doesn't matter. You can speak to it in Bahasa. You don't have to type. You can speak to it in Tagalog or in Vietnamese, right? Or in Thai. So now it's easier. And you can see the interest in AI in the region is very high. In fact, these three markets, Singapore, Malaysia, and Philippines, are in the global top 10 in terms of interest in AI. And the top industries are related to education, marketing, and gaming, and healthcare and travel. And education is interesting because that could be a potential game changer in the education front. Again, I'm not sure what it means here, education. I hope that it means that you are learning English languages online and using all these apps. And I hope it doesn't mean that you're using ChatGPT to do your problem sets and writing essays. And I'm sure you guys laughing means that you never done that, of course, here. Yes, but it's a good potential. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to think it's a former. But again, everything, there's a good side and there's a bad side. The problem with digital inclusion and more participation in digital economy also came with it the rise in scams, fraud, and cyber risks. And this is really a big issue globally. But unfortunately, a lot of the scam centers and hubs are centered around Southeast Asian region as well. And this survey is interesting because the study done by Google Pay and Temasek shows that even those who are quite confident in themselves in spotting scam, who think they are digital savvy, are not safe. 1 in 2 people who are quite confident actually got scammed. And the age of people who are quite susceptible is not just the older generation, it's 25 to 34. The youth is also susceptible to scams. 3 and 4 happen through messaging apps, social media. And this is pre-generative AI taking off. So imagine when it's so easy to clone someone's voice, image, video. Imagine in a world of post-truth, how bad can it be? So that's definitely one issue that we need to tackle together. Second is, I believe the AI transformation will have very significant impact and disruption on the labor market. And there's a lot of debate, a lot of discussion and research have done. I'm part of the World Economic Forum as well that have a lot of discussion on this Global Future Council on Human Capital. And I think, I don't have all the answers yet of what the world would look like post AI, but I have some hypothesis. And I believe that the humans and workforce is going to be grouped into 4 classes. The first class, I call it the AI landlords. Much like the landlords of the past, they own the products, they own the land, and they then collect the rents, and they are going to be the top of the pyramid. So who are they? They're people who own the models that we use. They are people who own the compute power and energy. So all the chip maker, all the energy producers that goes into these data centers, they're the one who own the infrastructure. Next layer is the application layer. We haven't seen a lot of this yet, but there's some in the US already that, the AI startups that become unicorns so quickly doing something related to AI legal or AI in healthcare or AI in agriculture. So these are going to be application layers, but they are the AI landlords, top of the pyramid. The second is what I call the cyborgs. The cyborgs refer to when you're collaborating with AI. So AI doesn't replace you, but AI augment your ability. So you're already good lawyers, you're even better. You're already good economists, AI helps you become even better. And the key here is that it's not that you have to be really good at using AI. Actually, AI is much easier to use now. But you have to be good at your domain subject. So the deep domain expertise is really important. Why? Because you know how to ask good questions and you know how to spot bad answers. And that's what it comes down to. When you have these two and you know how to use AI, you can go very deep. You can become the cyborgs, the augmented, the generations. And that means you're going to do quite well as well in this world. Not as good as the first one, but you're going to do quite well. Then you have the third group, which is the service professional. Well, a lot of things that AI can do already, but there's still some things they cannot do well. And that's kind of the human touch, empathy, the emotional intelligence. These are the things that whether you are, say, psychiatrists, your care workers, your teachers, these are areas where human touch is still very important. The human-centric skill is still key, and you can still do okay in that world. And then you have the last one, which is those who are displaced. And nerf, by the way, is a game lingo. It means like you're lost, you got leveled down by something happens to you. You become weaker, and you're out of the game. So you either unemployed or you're underemployed. So you still have jobs, but you're barely making it. You're doing 3, 4, 5 jobs a day and hardly time to think about anything. So the question is this for Southeast Asia: where are we going to be? Most of us. We don't know yet, but if you look at it today, it's quite hard for us to be here. Maybe we can help some AI champions that become in application layers in certain areas, perhaps, I hope so, but it's not going to be a lot of us. Augmented AI and human touch, I think possible if we get our education and retraining right. But if we don't, we're going to end up around here. And that's what I would want to see. And that's the risk we have to think about. So far we have talked about FDI, we have talked about AI already. And we have seen that as I talk, I wrote in a blurb for the event that in many ways, we talk a lot about deglobalization, that globalization is dead. But at least in some aspect here in Southeast Asia, it seems to have intensified. We're getting more attention than ever in FDI coming in, the capital, the good and the bad. We're getting a lot more goods flowing into our markets. Our SMEs in the past were kind of in comfort zone. Now they have to compete with global players. We're seeing the technological change is happening so rapidly from digital and now to AI, with new players keep coming in. So you ask, you cannot blame them if they ask, really has globalization kind of behind us? It seems to be even stronger in some respect. The question is how we're going to manage this, because we are at a critical juncture about what to do and what will happen next. And I don't have the answers. I think this is where, we'd love to have all of us help us put our brains together to think about how can we manage this new globalization for Southeast Asia and beyond. But I do have an idea that we have to reimagine at least 4 things. First is the new economies. I think we cannot deny that some of these new economies, these new themes is going to be important for the future. And in Southeast Asia, you want to be part of it instead of being left out. So you have to think about investing and developing capabilities in AI, in green economy, and longevity economy, which I haven't talked much about today, but it's very important for some countries, especially like my home country, Thailand and Singapore, where population is aging very quickly. So healthcare become a very important issues as well. But these are the kind of new themes. And you can see earlier in FDI, this is already the areas where FDI is going. So actually you don't have to reinvent the wheels. You just have to support and add to that, augment that, right? But it's not just about developing the AI economy. You have to ask the flip side of that too. What can AI economy do for you? What can these technologies do for the traditional sectors where most people are employed, the tourism, the agriculture, the manufacturing? And that's why I have the word here, augmented intelligence. Can we use these technologies to improve the productivity of our doctors, reduce their workload, help our nurses, help our teachers better, help our farmers to predict better, what's going to happen to the crops? All of these things are augmented intelligence that we need to do. And that's linked to this part. We have to think about change of perspective when we think about new economies, not just growing the GDP and then hope that the benefit will trickle down to the people. We already seen in AI space, you can actually expand probably profit productivity, but there could be a lot of people left behind. So we need to think about the new good jobs, the people first. How do we center the industrial policy around people? So I said people first industrial policy, and it's inclusion by design. So you start thinking about how do we develop so that the people can get jobs in these areas with new economies that we were talking about, or augmented industry that we're talking about. And to do that, I think the 3 keywords I like, and that we need to have magnets, rockets, and springboard. The magnets refer to attracting talents. Right now, talents are becoming more global. And I spoke to many students here from my home country and others. Many of them are interested in going back to the home country. Right? Talent's going to flow, and many of them, even they still want to stay in the US or stay elsewhere, there's so many ways they can contribute and work remotely or split time. Much more flexible now. So magnets is all about attracting the best and the brightest back to your hometown, back to your country, or let them contribute in some way wherever they are. So that's the magnet part. The second is rockets. Rockets is about the ecosystem that harness innovation startups. This is where you build the AI landlords. This is where you want the cream of the crops, the breakthrough, the entrepreneurs that can break through and become the unicorns, the decacorns, and the big companies in the future. In AI space, we still early, so we still haven't seen who's potential there, but you could be the same thing. If you imagine a digital age, the digital era, right? I was here in 2000, from 2005 to 2010. During that time, just across the river was Grab, or the founder of Grab and the founder of Gojek at the time was right there as well. So this could be the same thing. It could be one of you that actually came up with these companies, but the country needs to have the ecosystem that support them, that allow them to become that entrepreneurs and take it to the moon. And then you have the springboards, which probably is the most important. And springboards is about retraining and reskilling system on a national scale, something similar to what Singapore has done really well in Skills Future. Springboards is about equipping people so that they can transition from the traditional sectors, which are disrupted, to the new sectors, and also upgrading their skills so they can use the digital and AI. They can become the cyborgs that we talked about earlier. So this is going to be the retraining at a national scale. So these are the three things you need for new good jobs. And then you need the new markets, because the world's going to be more fragmented. You can't rely on the traditional markets just thinking about let's export to the US, Europe, or China. You have to think more about strategy, like where can I find new markets? And within Southeast Asia, there are two keywords there: together and for each other. For each other, meaning we can become the market for each other. Remember, in total, it's about 4.5 trillion economy, growing 5%. We all a big consumer market. Yet the intra-ASEAN trade is only about 23, 24% of total, compared to, I think, EU is about 50%, more than 50%. So it's still very low. We can trade among each other much more than before. And a lot of that is to do with decreasing all the non-tariff barriers within a country, within each country. And together means when we go out to export to the world or negotiate FTAs and trade agreements and cooperation, we can do that as a bloc, not as rival or not individually. Right now, we're not really playing that card much. We tend to go by ourselves and talk to the big country by ourselves. We should go together. Can we go to the EU together and try to have an EU and ASEAN free trade area, for example? And last but not least, you have all three, but then those are more kind of offensive strategy, if you like. We also need a defensive strategy. Defensive strategy means the new safety net, and it could be the ex ante and ex post. The ex ante one refers to when thinking about preventing, imagine a dome preventing, all the weapons and things coming in, thinking about whether we need some anti-dumping measures. I'm not saying we have to, but at least consider it if there's some, dumping of products, thinking about fighting scams, thinking about AI governance, to at least buy us time of people, vulnerable ones, to adapt. But then, of course, even though you have that, there can still be people who are affected and disrupted. So you have to think about exposed. How do we design the social safety net for these people so that they have time to recover, to relearn, and then come back to the labor market? But the tricky thing about Southeast Asia is that there's a large share of informal workers who are not part of the system. Like in Thailand, workers, about 50% are outside the social insurance. So we need to design a new system that really fit that world as well. So these are the 4 pillars, and I think there are 3 directions going forward, potential 3 scenarios for Southeast Asia. With the wave of globalization come in full force, we either A, got completely crushed by it, flooding of products, gray capital, scams, disruption to labor. This is if we don't manage well. 2, we got so scared, we built huge walls, none of the wave can come in, but we completely miss out on all of these trends as well. And 3 is what I want to see, which is we don't build the wall, but we build the board. And we use the board to ride these waves and become the new economic power in Southeast Asia, which I believe is good, not just for the region, but it's also good for the world. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Santi, for a great talk. I really got to learn a lot about Southeast Asia as well through this talk. Now we'll open the floor to the Q&A. For the Q&A, we'll take some of the questions first as a group instead of answering one by one to ensure we have used the time efficiently.
Sure.
Also, for the questions, make sure they end with question mark, not just dot. And also, please, make the questions direct so that it's also easier for our speaker to answer and for everyone to understand. Don't make it too long, like 2-minute long question, please. But if there's any question, please raise hand and we'll pass on the mic.
Thank you very much, Stephen Thomas.
Hey, thanks.
From MIT. Just simple question. Can much of what you envision as the positive scenario happen without major reforms across the individual governments that make up Southeast Asia, i.e., is it political? I'm not a politician, I'm an engineer, so cleaning house, straightening out, good governance. Thank you.
Right. Take 2 more questions before we move on. I'll take your 1 second.
Thank you so much for your talk. So I think a lot of these presentations are sort of long-term strategic visions, but I think a really popular term in Thai politics now is quick big win. So I'm a little curious to know what your takes are on what these next quick big wins are for the country. Thank you.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you for being here with us. Abdi from the Growth Lab.
Great.
If you look at the playbook of how FDI benefits Southeast Asian nations, it's mostly due to their technology transfers, spillovers. So like suppliers supplying to these multinationals, and then they become more productive, generate more good jobs. But the new economy that you say is like investment in AI, investment in data centers, will likely generate like similar technologies transfer that we saw in the manufacturing era of Asia and Southeast Asia. So how do you see the new playbook of FDI and those new economies in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for a great question, all of you. Maybe I'll start answering. Okay. Maybe in a bit of reverse order. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the things that we realize as well is that we no longer can celebrate the high FDI numbers. The next game is going to be quality games. Like you have to focus on quality of FDI rather than a quantity. And by quality, there's a few aspects. One is whether it's coming into the right sector, the strategy that you really want to boost. Then you see long-term strategy consistent with your long-term strategy. But the other part, which is really important, which is kind of linked to my good jobs, is this FDI creating good jobs in your country or not? And are they creating knowledge transfer? Are they really building up the supply chains of parts producers? That's the question that we have to ask. And in Thailand, for example, we've been a big auto producers in the world, but strength was very much in the ICE combustion engine, and now we shift to EV. But the problem we found with EV is that the value added actually has gone down a lot because we import a lot of parts and we don't have local producers participating so much. So the board of investment has recently changed policy that instead just giving out all these tax incentive for just to get investments. Now you have to have kind of local production. You have to have knowledge transfer happen in order to get kind of full tax benefits. So things like that, I think it's going to become more important. It's more quality rather than quantity. Yeah. Quick, big win, right? Yeah. No, I think it's very important. The idea of quick, big win came partly from one of the conversations which I had with the people in a policy making circle in Thailand too. And at the time, the debate was that, there's this long-term thing we need to do, but there's a political reality that when you have the governments coming in, they need to do something right? They need to boost the economy and whatnot. So one of the things I said was you need to connect the two together. There are some things that you can do, which is also good for the short term, but has a long-term benefit too. And so some of the things that you can do, for example, if you want to use fiscal policy to pump prime and boost the economy, is that, instead of just giving cash handout again and again and again, repeat that, rinse, repeat, can we invest in infrastructure that we really need? Like, for example, in the case of Thailand, one of the issues is the development is too concentrated in Bangkok. There's still a lot of area outside which you can develop, but sometimes they don't have good enough infrastructure yet. Can we spend infrastructure on that? So you're spreading out the developments. So it's good for the short term because you get a multiplier and whatnot. But for the long term, you're also consistent in your strategy of spreading developments out of Thailand, for example, things like that. And there are many of those which you can do hit the short run, but with the long run view as well. And reforms. Yeah, great questions. It's hard to answer because at the end of the day, you come back to my original thing, which each country is so different, right? So for example, I would say, if you talk about Singapore, I think they can do it. It's fine. The others, yeah, I think to some extent. I believe there's always this kind of lower hanging fruit that you can do. But clearly in some countries, yeah, I think it's true that a lot of political reform will be needed before they can actually deliver this in reality. So kind of yes and no. It's hard to say because there's so many shades and so many variations across different countries. But all in all, if you can have better institutions overall on government and political reform, then it would be better. It would be easier to do it and to do it in a sustainable way as well. Otherwise, some of these reforms, you can get it started, but if your political foundation is strong, it get disrupted.
All right, thank you. I think we'll take another round of questions. Also, we will have a career chat with Santi after this event, right after this event. Oh, sorry, it's like, no, so no, we'll try to take as many questions as possible so that you guys can get the questions on time in this event. Okay, we'll start with, do you still? Yes, so we'll also go there.
Hello, thank you so much for speaking with us today. My question is, to what extent do political stressors within ASEAN, like the recent Cambodia-Thailand conflict, dampen this goal of broader economic integration? And if they do pose a barrier to this successful development, cooperative development, how do you move forward with mitigating these possible conflicts within ASEAN?
Yeah,
I'll
take more.
Yep.
While I'm thinking.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I was actually working in Thailand, in Bangkok this summer in Thailand Development Research Institute.
Oh, TDRI, perfect.
Yeah,
Great.
amazing place.
Thank you.
And I was in the energy policy team, so we were working on bringing offshore wind into Thailand as a more sustainable way of energy. And the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems that we faced is that as you were talking about the skill boards, I think, right? Reskilling labor from oil and gas industry can be really hard, not only because there are a lot of skills that are not transferable, but also because of how expensive it can be. And it was just really, really hard to understand where could the funding for that come from, because in a lot of cases, the government can't really provide it. So yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, if any.
Yeah, and we'll take last two questions.
Thank you for the talk. Sorry, I'm first year MPID student here, and I got one question. So it might not be directly related to this topic, but I'd like to ask, like, what do you think is the biggest reason why you are chosen as a board member of Bank of Thailand? Because I've been working for central bank for 5 years, and actually I've never seen people chosen as a board member as like such like young age. So like
thank you.
Maybe there must be like a reason, like a you must have like a very talent or like unique skill set as like board member. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm also in the MPID program. I'm fascinated to know of the other 12 board members, other 11 board members, how AI forward is the entire, let's say, Thai community, because it seems like AI seems to be a big focus of yours, but of all the other Thai elites, how many people are thinking about AI? Or are you the only person thinking about it?
Yeah. Santi, I think you can answer
Those
now.
are really fun questions. Colin, you remember all the questions, right? Because I may not remember all of them.
Okay,
okay.
yeah, you can start from the back, or I'll try to remember as well.
Yeah, maybe the reskilling one first. Yeah, no, I think that's something we need to think about, right? But in terms of the energy transition sectors and themes, there are talks about whether some of the reskilling funding could come from a kind of earmark tax. If there's an earmark tax on, essentially green tax, right, on the traditional, and which push people to kind of transition, whether some of those can be used earmarked towards kind of a transition in general, which include reskilling of people from the old sector to the new sector as well. So funding side, I think maybe you can come up with some innovative solutions like that. What would be also interesting now I'm kind of thinking this live is that it's interesting to think about how can we, in a realm of transition finance, whether there can be kind of soft loans, that provide, or let's say if your companies train your workers towards the green economy, then you might get a lower interest rate or better terms, right? Because that's a new thing in a green finance thing that you can do. So potentially that could be tied together, conditions like that. It's not here yet, but I think that's something we can think about, and ought to think about. Then the question around the Cambodia one, yeah. No, I think that's a challenging one, right? To be honest, it is challenging for ASEAN as a whole, this situation. I would just say that it is a critical juncture of ASEAN as well. Like, how can you manage the situation? And if you can manage the situation and still collaborate in other areas, not related to this, then that would be kind of a testament. And then you can move on. And I think that would be the key thing. And a question to my favorite question, which is about being young. Well, first of all, I forgot the rest of the question. I just remember they were young boy. But yeah, no. I'm not as young as I look, but it's true. I am the youngest NPC member ever. The reason why I think I was chosen because it's a combination of two things. One is I understand how NPC work very well because when I was at Credit Suisse, my job is to guess and understand how NPCs around the world work. Because my job at the time was guessing, what the Bank in Indonesia would do, what BSP in Philippines would do, what Bank of Thailand would do. So I understand, have comparative advantage of looking at so many central banks and monetary policy. So I think that helps a lot. And then because of that, I always understand how market interpret different signals and communications. So I'm on the other side. So this is kind of like, not too different maybe from when you have this white hacker, right? You have a hacker and you kind of recruit on your side. So I think that's kind of my skill set that helps. And then because I have a tech background as well, coming in, I understand fintech. So that kind of provide a unique perspective. But you're right, because it wasn't easy at first. I know that we're kind of like, talking a bit, whether it will be a right fit, but in the end, I think it all worked out quite well. Yeah, but thanks for the question. And the AI, right? The board, I think AI is an interesting space because it cuts across so many sectors, right? There's a lot of interest in among the government officials as well in Thailand about AI, but it's mostly right now in a more kind of technical kind of realm. So you kind of like in digital economy, thinking about the research type, the technical and regulation side, how to regulate it, that aspects. There's not a lot yet that think about how do we use AI to augment our industries and how we're going to go about and do that. And I think that's really the key part. Because when you think of AI just purely from technical terms and you start look at all the risks and read the news and you don't fully understand it, you get scared. And when you get scared, what you do? You regulate it. You just write laws that kill the innovations and kill the inclusion, right? So I think what I'm trying to shift is the narrative from around how do we regulate it to how we utilize it to solve some of the problems we have, especially in Thailand when the problem is shortage of worker because demographics, our median age is 44. So, and our working age population is contracting. So we need to use AI anyway, in any case. So to see it as opportunity and how can we utilize it to our best ability? Yeah.
All right, thanks, Santi. I think we'll wrap up here to ensure everyone can also enjoy the beautiful Friday, and you can also enjoy the beautiful Friday today. Please join me in thanking again Santi for the great talk today.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, this is a small gift from the CID team for you as well. And for the other students, for all the students, thank you again for coming to this event. If you have not yet done so, please also sign up using this QR code for the CID so we can also plan better. And also feel free to also talk to Santi a little bit shortly after this talk. Thank you again, everyone, for coming here today. Thank you.